Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please be welcome to our webinar on cybersecurity and privacy challenges in the Internet of Things. My name is Osvaldo Laranquen, member of the Board of Directors of this special interest group of cybersecurity, part of Internet Society. I am also professor in information technologies and coordinator of the academic bachelor degree program on cybersecurity in the Instituto Tecnológico de Santo Domingo, also known as INTEC. As you may know, this is the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we have scheduled different webinars to contribute with fresh content, in this case about IoT, one of the most important emerging information technologies driving this fourth industrial revolution, which is impacting the digital transformation of production, our way of living, our society. It has been measured that over the last 2 years alone, 90% of the data in the world was generated, and it's because of IoT. IoT data is measured in zettabytes, a unit equal to 1 trillion gigabytes. According to Cisco estimates, by the end of the next year, the IoT will generate more than 500 zettabytes per year in data. And in the years beyond, that number is expected to grow exponentially, not linearly. As you might remind, the estimates in the number of accounts that access internet has reached 4 billion. And just because of IoT, it will surpass the 20 billion by the year 2020. A major information technologies such as artificial intelligence and robotics, autonomous vehicles, expert systems, and others are based on algorithms which take advantage of the big data produced by IoT. When disruptive technologies as these emerge, it is important to address its risk so we are fully aware of ways to handle them, especially in a time when society stresses the need to protect the privacy of individuals and its organizations, prevent incidents affecting continuity of digital services, or unauthorized access to their IT platforms. In this webinar, Cybersecurity and Privacy Challenges in the IoT, Professor Felix Uribe will be our invited speaker to share with us the current trend on the IoT adoption and its impact on cybersecurity issues.
Professor Felix Uribe is a security professional in information technology with extensive experience in the field of information security, cybersecurity, and privacy in the public and private sector. As an academic, he is an adjunct associate professor at the Cybersecurity Policy and Management Program of the University of Maryland, University College, where he teaches cybersecurity, privacy, and cybercrime courses. In the state of New York, he was a faculty member in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science at Mercy College and is the creator of the page Uribe100.com that provides news, links, and information in the field of cybersecurity and privacy. His current research interest focuses on issues that addresses the cybersecurity and privacy in the Internet of Things. As an IT security professional, he is currently a federal associate, privacy officer, and IT security analyst in the United States Department of the Interior, where he had worked in the development, implementation, and application of cybersecurity and privacy policies. At the United States Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General, he served as an IT security auditor, InfoSec, responsible for planning and conducting IT security audits and network vulnerability assessment for IT systems and products. Professor Uribe is a graduate of Herbert H. Lehman College of the City University of New York, CUNY, with a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science and is a member of several expert groups in the fields of cybersecurity, privacy, and cybercrime, such as the Europol European Cybercrime Center, the National Institute of Standards and Technology of the United States, the Octopus Community for Cybercrime in the Council of Europe, the InfraGard community of the FBI, and the National Council for Privacy of the United States, among others. Please welcome Mr. Felix Uribe.
Thank you, Osvaldo, and thank you to the Internet Society CybersecuritySIG for allowing me to give this small presentation about the cybersecurity and privacy challenges that we have in the Internet of Things, or IoT as we call it. For those that he was talking about before about the Spanish, if you want to ask me the question in Spanish, I'll be glad to answer it in Spanish or English. And this presentation is not going to be anything technical per se. We're not going to be talking about the technical requirements of IoT or anything like that. We're looking at it from a global perspective, from the challenges that we have, that industry, that the government all over the world have, that civil society, academia have in dealing with these new technologies. So let's begin, talk about exactly what is the IoT. If you don't know, I mean, this concept, this word, this phrase, Internet of Things, was coined by Mr. Kevin Ashton back in 2009, and in 1999, I mean. He wrote an article back in 2009, as a matter of fact, June 22nd, in which he talked about, how he basically came out with the idea of calling it the Internet of Things. He was working at this company, Procter & Gamble, back in 1999. He was working on RFID. And if you know what RFID is, basically a way to communicate with other objects, basic technology actually. And he put this work together to show to the upper management, to executives, that you can connect things to the internet, and he called it the Internet of Things. And interesting fact, he also said, that we need to empower computers to basically gather information, to see, to hear, and smell a world for themselves. And that's basically what IoT does. And as you will see, I'm gonna explain a little bit more about that. And he also said in the article, he said the fact that I was probably the first person to say Internet of Things doesn't give me any right to control how others use the phrase. And it's interesting because today, basically, everybody has a definition of what the IoT is. There's not a standard definition for it. Everybody defines it differently. I myself, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, have a definition for it. It's the definition that I believe right now suitable for it. The European Union Agency for Network and Information Security, NISA, has a definition. The United States Federal Trade Commission has a definition. But one thing that I want you to focus on those definitions is always keywords, right? Keywords such as connectivity, such as sensors, such as collection of data, connections. It's kind of the glue that joins all this definition together. In my case, I added an extra thing to it. Basically saying when they communicate, they not only communicate with devices, but also with living things. And I mean living things, I mean animals, I mean plants, I mean humans. As you will see later on, I have a last slide, have something about that. So there's not a standard definition of what it is, but it's basically, in simple terms, when you connect devices one to another through the internet or to some other network, you will see it not necessarily has to be through the internet, but it's a connection between devices. What type of devices? And that's what we are going to be looking at. So, sorry about that. So these are kind of what today people see as this Internet of Things, right? My lights in the house that I can turn with my app, my Fitbit, which I could use to keep track of my heart and motions, and when I'm bicycling and running, etc. My thermostat, my refrigerator, my electrical outlets. So these things nowadays, we took them from what they were and make them, given the ability to sense the world around them, at the same time to communicate with other machines, other devices, and to communicate with humans too, and living things, as I call them, with plants and animals and stuff. So that's what we people see on the news. What they call the Internet of Things is this. Let's look at it from a more technical perspective, and let's see what these things. Why do I have to care about cybersecurity and privacy when I use these things, when industry uses things, when government uses things? This is kind of the basic components of an IoT, an IoT Internet of Things device. Usually, the idea is that this device has the ability of sensor something through a sensor, either to see if the light is on, is off, to measure the temperature, etc. We have a kind of what we call a controller or a microprocessor, a system microprocessor, such as this particular case, we see the Arduino here. And actuators. Actuators are basically what makes what's the device that takes the action that the controller tells it to do. For example, in this particular case, there's a sensor that measures the temperature. That sensor sends a signal to the controller. The controller sends a signal to the actuator. Basically, it's the sprinkler system. We have a sprinkler system. So if you have your grass and you want to be able to water your grass when the temperature is high, you can do that automatically. So this device allows you to do that. This is what we call Internet of Things device, right? So it communicates between the sensors and the actuator, which is basically the device that takes the action. But these are kind of what we call basic components, right? So every IoT device will have these things attached to it. But the IoT environment, as I call it, or the ecosystem, goes beyond that, okay? So in this particular case on the left, right, we have my smartphone, which I use to connect to the internet, which allows me to connect to my router, which allows me to connect to a gateway or a device that I connect to my lights so they can turn on and off. So this ecosystem, you have to really understand this. The cybersecurity and privacy challenges not only happens at the IoT level, at the device level, but also happens when you're communicating with your routers. It also happens when you are on the cloud. In this particular case, my service provider is in the cloud. And I have to worry about also my smartphone device, which is another IoT device, that I have to worry about. What if somebody has access to my iPhone or my cell phone? You know, these are cybersecurity and privacy issues we have to worry about. So whenever you worry about cybersecurity and privacy issues in the IoT environment, you have to worry about everything, okay? A lot of people, as you can see, creating baseline for the devices. I'm gonna be talking a little bit about that. But you also have to remember that this environment is composed of many, many parts. And that's what makes it very, very difficult to kind of secure and to maintain privacy, as you will see. So as you can see on the right side, you have the hardware, which is the sensors, the processors, the actuators, the things that make it happen. You have the network, of course, the communication networks, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, to communicate with the device or something else. And then you have the software. In this particular case, the software may reside on the cloud, the software may reside on the device itself, and the software that makes this thing work, okay? The definition that you see there, components of an IoT, is my definition. I came out with it. I basically, when I write, I say any component of an IoT is the controllers, the sensors, the actuators, the memory, the storage, any component that is embedded in the device, the memory, the software, data, is and the form factor of the operation. So the software that's in the cloud is a component of the IoT. If that software in the cloud doesn't work, the IoT doesn't work. In other words, I cannot send messages to it, or it cannot communicate. So whenever you're dealing with cybersecurity and privacy, please remember you have to look at this as an environment, not only as a IoT device. A lot of people make that mistake and don't take into consideration that this is a big environment. And another look at it, we have, like I said before, we have the sensors and the actuators, right? So sensors are basically what senses everything, what sends information to the controllers and microprocessors. And this happens, and this basically tell the actuators, my garage door, my washing machine to begin. Basically, these are the actuators. And the connectivity, as you can see, can be through many venues. Right? You have Wi-Fi, Zigbee, low WAN. You have RFID. You have a lot of it, right? And like I said before, the connectivity could happen in a personal area network, a local area network, on a metropolitan area network, on a wide area network. So this connectivity and this sense of this information can go through many venues, many ways to connect. And once we have this kind of environment set up, these are the things that we can do with it, right? So people and processes use these devices, this thing. I could remote monitor maintenance things. I can control things. I can keep track of things once I'm able to connect something to them, and I know where they are. And as you will see later on, in terms of the benefits, we have benefits for gaining, I should say, making things better. You will see some examples of that too. So these environments involve people, processes, involve machines, and involves a lot of, like I said before, involves connectivity, communications, and sensors. So it's a big environment. We're not connecting, let's say, what we usually call computers, as you know them, right? Your PCs. We are connecting devices that connect to other devices. And we can connect these devices to things that were before weren't able to communicate, and we're giving them the ability to communicate. So that's what the environment is about. That's what you have to really look for when you're dealing with IoT technologies. So the IoT market, you will see one of the reasons why this is basically beginning to a kind of the beginning of a big issue. You have consumers. You have basically markets, right? So you have consumer home. The home market, as you will see, is taking a lot of. Going very fast. Everybody wants to connect their house to the internet nowadays. The healthcare is a big one. As you will see later on also. Hospitals, health centers, people want to basically monitor their health through there. And of course, with that, you have privacy risks, as you will see later on. Transportation, I mean, as you know, nowadays we are connecting cities to the internet. There are places, parking spaces. I don't know, I could find a parking space in a city because there's an app that will tell me that a sensor says that the parking space is empty. Or basically, or the garbage cans, right? So the garbage cans are full, there's a lot of garbage, there's a sensor in the garbage can that tells me, come and pick up the garbage, it's full. So there's a lot of uses to it, industrialized, a lot of people are industrializing. As you can see, you see robotics is taking a lot of place in that, and they come with a lot of sensors also, and so many others. So the market is growing, and the reason why is this is a good investment. I mean, people are beginning to see that they can make a lot of money out of connecting things. And that is an issue. It is an issue because, yes, there's a lot of money and there's a lot of things we can connect to each other, but we are doing it in a way that is kind of remind me of when the internet was open to the world. Great, now I can connect to the whole planet. I can talk to everybody on this planet, but we never thought about the cybersecurity issues that will come with it. Industry never basically, I should say, care for it, but humans, as it is, they want convenience, right? And that's what's happening with this. The same thing with the internet. We never thought about the privacy consequences, for example, of putting your information in Facebook or Twitter or etc. So these are the things that we, as an academic myself, and as many other people all over the world, are looking at not making the same mistake. So we're looking at how can we, yes, have a connected world, which will happen, by the way. I mean, these terms that we call the Internet of Things nowadays is going to disappear. That's my prediction, of course. I mean, 25, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, people will not call the Internet of Things. How can you call the Internet of Things to everything that is connected already? I mean, there's no name for it. It's just normal life. And that's what's going to happen. So before that normal life and that way of life in which everything is connected and in which information flows all over the planet, we're looking at now, get kind of again to not make the same mistake we make when we open up the internet to the planet. And we never considered cybersecurity or privacy. And that's why we have so many cybersecurity and privacy professionals nowadays, because we never thought about that. So we're trying to do that now. I mean, and I mean we, I mean all over the planet. I go to conferences about this, and it's all about finding a way to, how can we make this so, you know, these devices that you see here can communicate at least with some common language or something, because right now, as you will see, it's like everybody's talking different languages. Everybody's want to make that big money right away. So that's one of the challenges that we have when we're talking about the Internet of Things and the cybersecurity and privacy challenges. But let's look at what we came here for. Cybersecurity risk and privacy risks. When it comes to the Internet of Things, IoT devices, IoT environment, we find kind of the same, almost the same issues when it comes to this. When talking about cybersecurity, we have to maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of these devices and this environment, right? That's what the cybersecurity risks are, right? We're talking about privacy risks. We're talking about collection of PII. And by the way, PII, I forgot my definition. The personally identifiable information, information that identifies you as a person, right? It could be your name, it could be your age, it could be your color, it could be many things, okay? So any things that identify you as an individual or can be used to identify you is what we call PII, personally identifiable information. And we're talking about privacy risks. We have to worry about, once we have this authorized collection of information, so you gave it to me, I want to make sure that the information is secure. I want to make sure that I don't disclose that information to anybody. I want to make sure that I use the information for what I collect it for. So if I collect your information for whatever reason, I'm not supposed to be using it for something else, right? So these are the privacy risks. How we maintain this in an environment in which everything is connected, everything is talking, and everything is collecting so much data. That's what basically these privacy risks are. This is what cybersecurity risks are, right? In today's environment, we have the networks, and the networks, yes, they talk to each other, but you don't have computers collecting as much information as these sensors are. As you will see, that they're everywhere nowadays. And they're becoming just basically normal to see, to the world we live in it. And that's what we have to look at. So I will show you some kind of challenges, things that we have to worry about when we're dealing with this. Again, these are general. You can actually go and say, let me work on how can I solve the problem of communication between IoT, and that's, you can work your life on it. How can I make sure that the IoT communication there, or is secure when I put it anywhere I put it? So you kind of work on those issues. There's independent issues. There are hundreds of issues, of course. But what I'm gonna give you some kind of natural, these are not natural, but basically common issues, right? Issues that go across the entire spectrum. So what challenges do we have? What do we worry about right now? Because these devices are everywhere, they're coming to show up everywhere, right? Let's look at, and by the way, this is just a very small subset of the many issues you can encounter, right? So these are, to me particularly, are important. For you might not be, for somebody else might not be, but in general, I believe, from what my experience has been in dealing and working with the IoT, these are kind of general issues that we see. Number one is the many vectors of attack. You have, as you saw the slide before, hundreds and thousands of these devices, cameras, you have meters, you have sensors everywhere, and every one of them is a vector of attack, okay? I don't know if you remember, back in 2016, there was a botnet that basically used thousands of cameras to attack, to conduct a denial of service attack. So basically the IoT, which is a camera in this particular case, and some DVD writers were used as the bridge, right? So they were used to attack other, in this particular case was a service provider, internet service provider. So it was, they didn't attack the cameras themselves, but they used this camera to attack somebody else. So basically, if you have, can you imagine how many cameras out there? Just myself, I have a bunch of them in my house, and so my neighbors and so everybody else. So we have millions and millions of cameras that, to be honest with you, are vulnerable, and they can be used to attack. So that's the number one issue. How can we address this? I mean, how can we make sure that these devices do not do this, right? But then again, we have some of the issues that we have to worry about. These devices have a technical constraints, right, of the device, limited capabilities. If you want to make something that is effective, you want to make a device that works, that has a sensor that senses the, let's say, the humidity in your room, and it turns the air conditioning on or whatever, you don't need much, okay? But if you need a device to process encrypted data, then you will need kind of more memory, you will need more processing power, and meaning if when you do that, these device makers don't want to spend too much money on it. So they kind of provide these devices with technical constraints on the device, right? Limited capabilities that you cannot enhance those cybersecurity and privacy issues that we have. Another thing is a very complex IoT ecosystem. So you have thousands of unique devices. You have, I mean, you name it. If you have, for example, one camera, you have now 1,000 different models of the camera, all of them that you can connect. Can you imagine? So if you have a door lock to lock your door using the internet, using Alexa, using whatever, you have thousands and hundreds maybe of locks that work. So it's a very complex IoT ecosystem, which makes it very difficult to secure. And then on top of that, we don't have we don't have standards or regulations. So there's no standards to say, if this is an IoT device, you should do it this way. And regulations that might say, if you build an IoT device, you have to do it this way. We don't have that. In the United States, they are working towards that to see if we can have something to talk about, as you will see later on. In Europe, it's the same case. So if you're talking about this side of the Atlantic or the other side of the Atlantic, we are in the same boat, okay? The rapid and widespread deployment, everybody wants to basically get to the market first, right? I want to be the first one to get to the market. So in that rush to deploy these devices, you have a lot of vulnerabilities introduced. You have a lot of lack of security. Nobody cares about what it is. I just want to put my stuff up there. It's a new thing that people are going to buy, and I want to just put it out there. So that constitutes, again, cybersecurity challenges. And we just, how can you secure something that it's just fresh and it's built by the masses? And that's interesting because there was an article not recently, recent article in which this guy was calling this Chinese manufacturer of cameras, Chinese, they were calling it cyber polluters, because they were putting these cameras, thousands and millions of them out there, in which they were able to send information back to China. So basically, he was talking about polluting the internet. I mean, why don't you make these devices so people can have control over them? But they don't want to. They want to control their own devices. And then you have the legacy and new IoT devices. So legacy systems are old. You cannot update these devices. And usually, most of the time, you cannot send an update and patch the device. Same thing happens with the new ones too. My garage door is connected to the internet. It's an IoT device. I put it in there 5 years ago. I haven't updated that. I can't update it, actually. The company hasn't told me how to update it. I don't know how to update it. So these are the issues that we have. This, software updates, very, and remote access, also very difficult. Sometimes these devices are either difficult to access from the outside, or basically sometimes are wide open. In secure software development, when they build these devices, and the software that they use is basically just, sometimes it's off the shelf, sometimes it's just open source, sometimes it's just software that they build themselves with no security or privacy in mind. And that's a challenge, because you have hundreds of companies building different devices, different software, different methodologies, and that doesn't work. That's a cybersecurity challenge that people have to address. I mean, that's what we're working on, right? We're working on that. Do the whole government has to tell these people to secure the stuff this way, or what's going to happen here? Of course, and these devices, when we're dealing with critical infrastructures, right? We have to be very careful. The government is very careful about, the governments actually are very careful about that, because they can have changes in the physical world, right? Those actuators, remember? So the actuator is what happens after the sensor of the device, sent to do something, right? So that device that do something, let's say a water dam, right? I mean, some water irrigation system or something, and the device is sending a signal by mistake and opens up the waters and then floods the entire city. Just an example, right? But this is an effect on the physical world, right? Because they are out there. We're putting these devices everywhere. And I give you an example of that. This is kind of what DoD say. Look, we know we have internet IoT devices out there, and they give you some examples of what could happen to us. I mean, what happened to people. For example, like the last one, right? A senior DoD leader, the Department of Defense leader, is in the vehicle, is connected and monitored through the internet, and a malicious actor hacks the software in the car, and now the person can listen to the DoD leader or the general or somebody on that car. These are kind of examples of this. And these are real examples. These are things that the Department of Defense in this particular case is taking very seriously when it comes to cybersecurity. But by the same token, look what happens here. And this is interesting, because this is, again, an unintended consequences of IoT. In this particular case, it's a new policy. This was published on August 6th recently. The new policy prohibits the GPS tracking in deployed settings. Okay, so if you are working for the Department of Defense of the United States and you are deployed somewhere, either in secret or not secret places, you're not supposed to have any GPS tracking devices. This particular policy came out of this issue. I don't know if you remember this. Beginning of the year, Nathan Rosser, this particular company called Strava, published a heat map. In this map, they have 13 trillion GPS points of people that were basically using their fitness devices. So when you run and you say how many miles you run and stuff like that, this company allows you to upload your data and you can manage your data that way, right? So you know where you went, you know how you did it, you know how you're doing. So kind of and they decided, so well, we have so much data from many people. Why don't we tell people what people are running, right? And unfortunately, guess what? The military also uses, fitness devices, IoT devices that they can connect also to the computers and the internet. And that's what happened. So these people that were in places that people were not supposed to be, they were there, show up in the map. It shows some places in Africa that say, why people are running in the middle of Africa? No, there's nothing there. And when you look close, you see that there was a military base. So basically, the data, it says data about exercise routes that the soldiers share online, pinpoint where they were. And if you were there in a secret mission, now people know or knew now that you were there. And not only that, if you are a guy that uses your fitness to run around the base when you are doing exercise, your mandatory exercises, and now I know where you run or where you go, and that's the risk to any military base, okay? So basically, this is what I call an unintentional consequence of a privacy issue with an IoT. It was not meant to be. It happens. The company didn't thought about that, okay? And that's what you have to think about when you are dealing with IoT ecosystem is this gonna cause any problems? Is it gonna cause any security issues? Yes, it's causing security issues, it's causing privacy issues in this particular case. So in case you didn't know about this interesting case, because this is what happens when IoT is not, the cybersecurity and privacy issues are not taken care, nobody cares about. And of course, now it says over here, now effective immediately, the Defense Department personnel are prohibited from using geolocation features, okay? So on any device that can do that. So the IoT devices are very famous for that. You can use them for know where your dogs are, where your kids are, where your car is, everything. And it will come a time in which you will know everything about everybody, anything, if it's out there to publish, okay? And in the same aspect, this just came out in October, this month. We're in October, right? Yeah. This came out just now. This is from the from the United Kingdom agency, the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport, and the National Cybersecurity Center. They put this out there, this consumer IoT security. So this is just to show you that not only in the United States, not only in Europe, places all over the world, this kind of governments are worried about these things. And this is very simple. You can kind of download this. It's called the Code of Practice for Consumer IoT Security from UK. And as you can see, for example, number 1, 2, and 3 are the things that they consider that if you're gonna build an IoT device, you should worry about, right? You don't want to have default passwords. You want to implement vulnerability disclosure. You want to tell people what's vulnerable about the device. You want to keep your software updated, and so many other things that you should worry about. Number 11 and number 8 deal with privacy, right? So basically, we're telling them, if you build an IoT device, please make sure that the consumer can delete the personal data, and ensure that the data, if you have it, is protected. And again, these are general terms. We're talking about baselines for a particular camera, okay? We're not talking about anything, but talking about IoT devices in general. And that is what you have to look at. You cannot look at this thing from only a device, but an ecosystem entire. This is particular for IoT devices. You have to look at it from an ecosystem point of view. Privacy challenges. Okay, what are the privacy challenges? Privacy challenges are many. And you can see from the example from the Strava, from the GPS locations of the soldiers and stuff. We are facing a very, very big challenge when it comes to this. The massive amount of data collection, that is being used for marketing and business value, right? So they are collecting this information, like, for example, just look at the collection of GPS locations, right? So now I know that in Central Park, for example, I see the map and I look at it and I say, wow, there's a lot of people running in Central Park. And that's great, and they're running at this particular time of the day. Okay. So guess what? I'm gonna put some sneakers or some shoes or some, gym, to go to a gym commercial there, something that ads that people can look at and say, oh, dude, look at that. So kind of the marketing value that it has, right? This massive amount of data collection. And another thing is this, sometimes this data collection happens without the knowledge of consent of the person. So if you have a Fitbit or whatever, and the medical history of yours, your heart rate, your blood pressure, etc., goes up in the internet, okay? And without your knowledge, now people know about you. People know you suffer from high blood pressure, okay? And this is happening at a massive scale. Your habits, your inclinations, where you were, what you want to eat, or because you have some type of devices, you will see later on, we have, there's many of them that people use. The data aggregation on a large scale may be a combined, facilitate identity theft. So not only I know about you in terms of where your address is, like things that I could get on the internet, right, on the black market, on the dark net, but also I know your habits. I know your some of the things that I get through these devices, and of course, privacy is out the window there. And one of the biggest one is the unauthorized surveillance from the public and the private sectors. So that's a big worry, big brother, right? Are companies looking at you unauthorized view, right? I mean, you have surveillance that is authorized, right? So drug dealers or whatever are doing something, and the government wants to watch them. That they might find and break into their cameras and stuff like that. But things that are unauthorized, and worry about a lot of people in many countries. Backdoors, want to have these devices with backdoors. In many countries, this is becoming a human and civil rights issue, a lot of violations. So these are privacy concerns that when you're looking at a connected planet, a planet that is basically full of this, billions of these devices everywhere. And prediction says that by 2020, we're going to have probably 20 billion or maybe 30 billions or maybe 50, depending on who you talk to. 20 billions, 30 billions, 50 billions, no matter what it is, 50 years from now, it's going to be billion. The entire planet is going to connect. So that's why we have to worry about these things right now, right? Just unauthorized surveillance of things. And one of my biggest worry, where you can get a lot of privacy information, is from this wearable technology. Everybody's wearing everything. I mean, you have shoes with sensors, you have helmets with sensors, you have watches with sensors, glasses with sensors, the clothing that you wear have sensors. And this is basically what guess what? It's massive collection of information about the people that are using these devices. This is a big, and I believe one of the biggest privacy concerns that we have, especially on the medical. If you look at the medical ones, so basically you have a sensor for diabetes, and that sensor communicates to the internet. Oh, well, now I know he has diabetes. So guess what? I'm gonna basically put a lot of sugar on him, something like that, right? So this is kind of the worries, and when it comes to privacy, especially coming directly from you. So these are kind of things that manufacturers are trying to work on, but then again, it's the latest thing. I just want it. I don't care. And 10 years from now, we'll care because now my entire life is everywhere, okay? And it's for those of you that want to look at where these things might be connected, I have some of those engines, I would call them, right? So it's like the Googles of the internet of things. So Shodan is one of them, Thinkful is one of them, Census is one of them. And these are another project here, but these are engines. This is when you can see things, connect devices connected to the internet, and they have no security. And if you worry about no security, because you can see them, they're not behind any firewall, they're not behind anything. You can see them, they're wide open. You can hack them if you wanted to, but you don't want to recommend you hack that because it's your own device. If it's your own device, yes, you can hack, but don't hack anything. But what I'm saying is people are looking at this, and people will do hack. I mean, we do it to see the security of things, but people will do hack them out. People out there that want to, for whatever reason, criminal enterprises will do this, and governments will do this, and everybody else that is with bad intentions as we call it, will do this. So that's one way of view to look at and see how massive this issue is. But then again, not everything is bad. I mean, we live in a world, and I believe, I also believe, I have dreams about hopefully the internet will save the planet someday. I mean, the IoT actually will save our planet, because the more we know about our planet, the better we know how to protect it. So hopefully the Internet of Things will do that for us, right? Some of the things that right now people are using it for good intentions, improve the well-being, of course. If you have a heart monitor and it's connected to your doctor's office and something happens to you, the doctor can see it right away. Reduce expenses, like I said before, instead of people looking for parking spaces all over the place, wasting gasoline. Now I know exactly where to go because I know which one is empty. These are kind of examples of that, right? And we have more benefits that are coming out of the Internet of Things in the terms of the agriculture or the farmland. There's a lot of excellent. We can maximize profits there. We can maximize the health of the animals. We can maximize the health of the plants. As you know, the Internet of Things is coming to the cars, autonomous cars, semi-autonomous cars that can drive themselves. And of course, the cities are seeing a wave. Many cities, Barcelona, I believe, is one of them. San Diego is one of them. San Francisco is one of them. Many cities all over the world are using this to connect to everything. And of course, your home. Right now, in my house, I have several of them that I put myself, but 10 years from now, my house will come with everything, right? So it's just gonna be part of the norm, right? This is what people want. I wanna be able, so when I get home, my house knows that I'm home, and my house knows that what the temperature I like, what I don't like, what music I like. So my house will talk to me. Instead of me talking to the house will talk to me. And this kind of at the same time are benefits, but at the same time are worries about how we can do this better. So I'm not being tracked on my car when I take in my car, and nobody can just track me just because, right? So my privacy is maintained. And here in the United States, and I just put this to the National Institute of Standard Technology. I go there to many meetings about others. I'm in the cybersecurity group, so as part of the government cybersecurity group. But they have a lot of, if you ever want to know about what we're doing here, that's a place to go, especially for the federal government. There's a lot of publications out there. The considerations, this one, for example, the draft NIST IR 8228 just came out in September. It's a draft. You can comment on it. You can see what we're trying to do here when it comes to cybersecurity and privacy risks. The next one just came out October 17, which is basically 2 days ago. Internet of Things, trust concerns. These are the things that people are worrying about. I also mentioned the ENISA. The ENISA has a baseline security recommendation for IoT. Came out in November of last year. I recommend you to also look at that. It's kind of a way of saying, again, just like the British, that UK did with that kind of little guide suggesting what you should worry about when you put in IoT devices. The same thing happens here with the NISA, kind of an extensive recommendation of the basic security baseline you should use. So we all try in one way or another to see to see how can we help, right? I myself, last year, for example, and I'm going to end with this one, I think, I came out with this, just a way of saying, Jesus, there's so many devices out there. Is there a way to classify them, to make sure that what's important, what's not important? And this is me basically saying this. I mean, just like me, there are many people out there coming out with ideas and stuff about how can we make this better, In this particular case, I said, well, I'm going to classify my devices based on the impact they have on living things, right? So if my cow depends on it, I'm going to classify this device as an A. If my cow, my cat, or my dog doesn't depend on it, it's an animal, then I'm going to classify it as a B, right? And so forth and so on, okay? But this is a subjective classification. You can go to the website, I have a paper there. Well, these are the things that we are trying to figure out, right? Things that we're trying to deal with and come up with and say, how can we make this thing better for the future? Because you already made the same mistake. We made the mistake actually on the internet. So that's why we have this many things to worry about nowadays. And on top of that layer, which we already worry about, we have to worry about this layer. So and that's the future. And if you know this you kind of stuff, this is going to be the way of things. Okay, nothing you can do about it. And with this, I will end this presentation for an overview of this. And I guess, Osvaldo, if you have any questions you have on the line, you let me know.
Well, I was mentioning that we are expecting more than 20 billion devices connected to internet by 2020. And this will create so massive production of information and data that is expected to raise to 500 zettabytes per year. That is more than, it is since 2016 to now, it is mentioned by Gartner that more than 90% of the information of all the internet era has been raised in the last 2 years. So these devices are the basis for implementations of robotics, artificial intelligence, expert systems, autonomous vehicles. Some of the things you mentioned were related to the medical devices, you know, how these can affect not only our security in an information basis, but with our health, because of the wearables, because of the pervasive invasion in our homes and things like that. And one of the questions raised by one of the participants in the conference is it realistic that control devices that we expect, I mean, Mabel asked, all these devices must comply with privacy by design. But one of the questions was, is it realistic to expect privacy in an IoT hyper-connected world? So this is our first question, please.
Yeah, I see, you know, myself, and again, this is me talking, I see solutions to issues that we face nowadays as patch. You know, we will come out eventually, and I believe, I mean, I'm very optimistic that even though we don't find a solution now, let's say machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all the other technologies maybe that come up in the future will allow us to do that. Right now, it is very, very difficult. You know, people are just selling these devices. I mean, it's just a way of, you know, a lot of solutions that people came out with was to have something in front of it. So if I have in my house, if I have a bunch of IoT devices, the way I could protect this is to having a gateway in the front of it. So that way I could protect myself. I mean, this is very difficult when it comes to, hopefully, I'm just being helpful, okay? That the future of the internet, or the Internet of Things, will eventually solve itself, right? It's just kind of the unknown right now. It's up, you know, every day we connect thousands of them to the internet, thousands every day. I mean, you know, you connect cameras. I mean, you can go into my neighborhood and you will be watched 24/7, because every neighbor has a camera everywhere, right? So I mean, it's very hard to maintain privacy, like I say, unless something from above, you know, I mean, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at this, how can we make this happen in the future? How can we prevent this from happening? It's very, very difficult. These are general questions, but yeah, we try.
Well, one of the participants raised this question. How can we raise awareness with consumers about investing $1 for IoT devices that follow good security practices? Is there a way we can have any awareness about these things we buy for our homes?
As a matter of fact, just let me just get you here so I could. And then I'm going back to the ENISA, the European baseline that I mentioned before. One of their recommendations was to raise awareness for the need of IoT cybersecurity. And the awareness has to be raised, right, of course, within the industry, the providers, the manufacturers, associations, you know, so it has to come from there and then back and then to the public to make sure that when you buy something, people are thinking about putting labels on these devices, right? So people are aware that, you know, this device has a rating of B or C or D for security or for privacy. And just basically saying, I mean, it's just, I believe if I'm a manufacturer, it will be my responsibility to tell the user of the device and say, listen, these are the security, this is what we offer as security, this is what we don't offer. They don't do that. I mean, they don't tell you that. So it's kind of, like I said, NISA suggests that, well, we have to raise the awareness within the industry, you know, providers, people that provide these things, academia, consumer groups, people that, you know, by the masses from the inside out. I mean, that's the best way, with the kind of the same way we're doing right now with the social media, right? Social media awareness. Oh, don't put everything on Facebook. Kind of the same thing. Be careful when you put a camera. Be careful when you buy a smart TV. Make sure that the smart TV is not listening to your conversations. Make sure that when you buy a device, it's not sending information out to the. But then again, it's very hard for a regular consumer to know if your toaster is sending your information out to the toaster maker. So it's kind of hard, you know, but it's just that, again, just something that is being worked on, coming from the industry first and then going to the people that use the devices.
Okay, there are some trends and patterns in the behavior of governments in Europe and the United States, where people see in the United States more innovation, no? So, but in the Europe, they are more focused on the regulations. Are really standards enforced by law, or law must rely on standards to try to figure out a way to avoid danger to human beings?
Well, in the case of Europe, the European Union, especially the European Union or Europe in general, is more conscious about privacy as a human right, right? And they, you know, it shows up on the GDPR, the just General Data Protection Regulations that just came out not long ago. In the case of the United States, I mean, again, Europe has an advantage over that. In the case of the United States, there are no privacy laws for the general public, for the citizens per se. We have some protections in some things, but nothing that is going to protect us from IoT, unfortunately. We don't have that yet. We have what we call, for example, what they call here the Privacy Act of 1974, which only applies to federal agencies. It doesn't apply to IBM or Google, nothing like that, right? So that's out the window. And there's no way to we don't have policy. We have in every state we have different let's say laws and regulations. For example, the case of California, right? California have a very new privacy law. Very, very good. I mean, very good. It's a good start for, you know, the people say, why don't we have the same kind of requirements that California has and have a federal law that is for everybody. We don't have that yet. They're working on it. You know, there's a lot of interest in the middle there, but that's where we are right now. We don't have, like, you know, the way the Europeans do have that GDPR and that data protection, and how consumers and how individuals have the right to their privacy and the control of the data. We don't have that here. We, unfortunately.
Thank you, Felix. One of the, Karina has raised this question specifically for the California Senate Bill 327 about information privacy, connected devices that you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Do you have any special, another explanation or details you may share with us?
No, I mean, like I said before, the idea is, that we're trying, and in California, like California is always ahead of privacy stuff, I guess, because of they are the #1 economy in the United States. But it's just like they did, trying to find a way to protect individuals' privacy, individuals' rights. We wish, and that's my only wish, is nothing to add to it, that we have the same thing nationwide. In the United States, we have a lot of states, right? And only California is doing this, protecting the privacy of the individuals, and making sure that the privacy of the individuals is respected and used, and people have control of the information and privacy. We don't have it. I mean, there's a lot of people, some people that are against, I guess, privacy, always argue that they should have been doing that, whatever. We should have a federal law, but we don't have a federal law. We don't have one. So good for them. I mean, that's what I can say. I wish we could have the same thing or similar to that all over, but we don't.
Thank you, Felix. Another question raised is, manufacturers do not provide support forever. What will happen if vulnerabilities are discovered and there is no way to update that device, since there will be millions distributed? Standards are law enforced, or what? Aren't law enforced, sorry.
No, okay, again, going back to that, we're trying to figure this one out, right? It kind of the same case in which let's take, for example, Windows, right? So Windows says, after November 1st, Windows 8 is not going to be supported. I mean, basically, that's what they told you. After November 1st, Windows is not going to be supported. Find another way. Either move to Windows 10 or whatever, or, you're out of luck. We have the issue we have with many IoT devices is that they go out of business. And now you have a alarm system in your house, which is basically wireless, connected to your, and the manufacturer just left. I mean, tough. Nothing you can do about it. That's why we kind of advocating for be able to update this yourself, right? Be able to go and say, here, Felix, we have a new Windows 10 update, upgrade it, or automatically upgrade or something like that, right? So my alarm system in my house and all my sensors and everything gets updated. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it if somebody leaves, or you just can't access your device anymore. Like I said, another reason for that is that they're very cheap. So you buy something that is only $25. Okay, that one broke, buy another one. That's the way it is. I know. I mean, that's the way I deal with this stuff and see everything every day. It's so much cheaper to replace them and not worry about if tomorrow it's not going to work or whatever. And that's why some these are NIST, for example, the European Union, and many other places in the world are recommending. For goodness sake, they're going, please, could you do this for me? Could you just make sure that this happens? Because there's no way to enforce it, unfortunately.
Thank you. Another issue related to the last one just mentioned is about, there is a great trend of open innovation. A good sign of that is the acquisition by Microsoft of the GitHub open source web site. No? A great acquisition, very good value. And people are asking, there is a question here, is open source a solution? Can be given as regulation and not block the innovation for it? I mean, I will add to this that because of this, maybe some trends are more based on software than on hardware. Irrespectively of the brand you are using or the series you are doing, maybe some open source platform will arise as a standard. What do you think about this?
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, I could give you an example of, it's like, well, let's just go back to history, okay? And that's the same thing. I just like to use history. In the history of the internet for the past 30 years, as you know, many standards fell out of the sky, just don't use anymore, and another one to cover, right? Because whatever reason may be. And like I said it before, I'm hoping that, and the way I see it, this is my own personal belief, that hopefully the same technologies is allowing us to get here will allow us to implement cybersecurity and privacy requirements for the ecosystem, for the entire system. Do I wish that, I mean, is it good to have one platform, one open source platform that will take care of this? Maybe yes. I mean, TCP/IP is used for everything we do on the internet. So yeah, I mean that's something that is evolving. It's getting there. Like anything else, when the internet opened up, you didn't know we're gonna have social media, right? You didn't know we're gonna have this Uber or this Airbnb, whatever. These are things that came out of that, right? And they become standard, become new norms. So hopefully, I'm hoping that, when it comes to this environment, will happen the same thing will happen, and some platform will allow us this to happen, or some way of thinking. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm open to everything, by the way. For the past, since I began using the internet when I was a kid, yeah, I've seen a lot of things happening.
Thank you, Felix. There is a comment by Mabel. She says, the companies right now and before just think in sales, but a lot of consumers are awakening and more of them informed of their rights. European Union has a robust legislation regarding privacy and data protection. The consumer person is the center of this regulation. And she raised a question. Right now, what is the legal situation of the privacy shield, the USA European Union Data Flow Treaty? Can you share with us your thinking about this legislation?
To be honest, I don't want to. I mean, I wrote about it 3 years ago, and I wrote about it because of the changes at the time. Right now, I don't want to misspoke. So I don't want to say anything about it right now. I don't want to feel like I know what I'm talking about because I haven't kept a little bit with that yet. About sorry. I did wrote about it. If you read an article from me, I did it like 3 years ago, about the privacy shield and stuff like that. But I haven't done it ever since. So I wish I could answer that question. You could send it to me email and I could answer it. I could look for it.
Thank you, Felix. I see no other questions here, but you share with us in your presentation that in the next few days, a few weeks, you will be in Europe sharing with one of the committees, the trends on IoT about regulation, security, standards. Can you share with us what will happen, what is expected to happen there? And you are committed right now to share with us the details in November when you're back. But please, can you advance some of the things that will be treated in that place?
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot, right? This is the Europol. Everybody knows, if you don't know, Europol is a kind of police kind of management of Europe. It's a place that a lot of interagency police departments work with the European Union. But they have, last year they have the first, and so this is a concern. This was the first IoT conference dealing with these issues, cybersecurity and privacy issues. And we are, in this particular year, is kind of continuing what was said last time. And like you said, it's going to be, yes, it's going to be a lot of things about Europe in terms of, what these new privacy laws are affecting, and what solutions Europeans are trying to find, and experiences from cities, from organizations that are implementing good solutions to the use of IoT. So this is it's about policies, it's about industry, it's about government for the European Union, but also the lessons learned that you get from there you can bring everywhere, right? The internet, it doesn't know any borders. I mean, there's no borders when it comes to the internet. It's no frontiers. It's nothing. It's waiting everywhere. And so that's the idea is that, I mean, if you actually go to Google and type IoT, it's called Europol IoT and ESA conference. It's kind of, you will see it's basically talking about those issues. Getting people from academia like me, getting people from the government, getting people from policymakers, getting people from a different rainbow of people that come down and talk about these issues that are affecting, in this particular case, the European Union, and and some other people from other countries like the United States also go there. So hopefully, I'm looking forward. It's going to be next week in The Hague, in Europol headquarters in Amsterdam. I'm sorry, in Holland. And that's what we do there. I mean, that's what we do here at the NIST, at the National Institute of Technology. That's the same thing we do here. We're trying to figure things out. There is the same way. Bring people from all over the place doing this stuff. What do you think is the best way to approach this? And hopefully, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, everything's gonna be just fine. Yeah. So that's what we do there.
Okay, thank you, Felix, for sharing with us your thinking about these trends. This has enriched our knowledge about these IoT devices, its trends, the challenges, not only on cybersecurity matters because of many vectors to attack, but also our privacy challenges, because big data, artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, expert systems, robotics, they all depend on IoT and the wearables and other healthy products related to agriculture, environment, and things like that. You just brought to us a big picture of what is happening. We thank you a lot for this moment you share with our community. It is important to mention that this month we celebrate the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which tries to bring people important insights about what is happening, not only from a technological perspective, but about human beings, the humanity, how it's affected by cybersecurity. We see that IoT is getting near to our to interpret our behavior and transported into data and helps not only identify ourselves, but to try to help us have a better living. No? So thank you again in representation of the cybersecurity special interest group community. If you have any other message before closing, please share it with us.
Oh, thank you. No, I just wanna, like I said, my recommendation is number one is if you have a chance, go to the NIST site, the NIST National Institute of Standards and Technology. They have a couple of, like I said, a couple of draft papers that are draft that people can provide comments. And if you are into this field, that you see something that you could contribute, please be my guest. And there are some other, I think there's new draft papers coming out of Europe also soon, hopefully. Hopefully I'll see with more next week. But if you have any contribution, anything you can see and help out, this is something that we don't want to make the same mistake that we did when this internet became available to everybody. And this is becoming not available to everybody, but this is kind of becoming available to everybody and getting information from everybody. So we want to make sure we do the right thing. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you to everyone for being with us in this webinar. We expect you had a good time and receive the knowledge you were looking forward. We expect next week to try to share another webinar about interesting experiences. And please have a good weekend. Thank you, Felix. See you then. I remind you that we will we will post this recording on YouTube, and we'll let you know about their availability soon enough. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye.